A little over a week ago, I picked up my iPhone 6 Plus. Since then, I've spent the majority of my free time doing what the average user would. Facebook, Twitter, messaging, and even taking photos. I've played the games, I've used the GPS, I even fought with iOS 8 and all its quirks. Hello, I'm Doug Drummond, and this is Consumer Gadget Reviews. So the new iPhone 6 and 6 Plus have been out just over a week. This isn't a full review, but rather my opinion after being hands-on for that time period. Ultimately, it's just the same phone, only bigger. The idea of a phablet is in no way revolutionary, and pretty much every Android in the game is sporting a larger display. But the iPhone sets it apart because, well, it's the iPhone. So let's see what's new. Well, my number one favorite feature of the 6 Plus is the battery. Before this, my 5S wasn't even making it a full 8 hours, and often I found myself panicking before I even got off work for fear of a dead phone, and that was with only average use. My 6 Plus seems to be like that of the Energizer Bunny, where it just keeps going and going. Obviously, my new toy has been getting used quite a bit, and a typical day for me starts at removing it from the charger around 7:30 a.m. I then use Voxer in the morning, I send some texts, I make a few phone calls, I'll browse YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. I might even snap some photos for Snapchat, and I might even play some low graphic games for time killers. On my way home, I usually talk the entire 15-minute commute, and then I'll send some more tweets, post some more statuses, and I'll even check my fantasy football lineup, and not once this week have I gone to bed before midnight, and I'm still above 10% battery. Often more like 20%. The design is great. I love how it feels in my hands, and finally I have an iPhone that's large enough I'm not squinting and constantly reaching for my iPad. Being that it is larger, I found that one-handed use is a little bit challenging, but Apple built in a feature that when you lightly double-tap the home button without completely depressing it, will bring the top of the screen down to reach your hard-to-tap apps and settings towards the top. Unfortunately, unlike the Android competition, iOS hasn't made any use of all the extra real estate. Besides the settings, which give you somewhat feel of a multi-window, Android does this and it's functional. Of course, in text mode and email, it's the same story. You get that multi-window, but I never really text or email that way, so hopefully we're going to see some improvements to this. Third-party keyboards are pretty awesome, and finally we can swipe text and even customize your color or even your characters, but it's still quirky, and honestly, I'd rather just use the stock keyboard, and I really enjoy the predictive text, which is new with iOS 8. Now, the camera hasn't gotten a larger megapixel count, but the stabilization seems to improve your photo taking, and so is the low light and the new added ability to control your exposure. There are a slew of new features that make the 8 megapixel camera still one of the best in the game, period. I don't care how many megapixels you can stuff in your Samsung. I've gone case-free since I bought this phone, and yes, I do keep it in my pocket. And guess what? Despite all the hoopla, my phone hasn't bent once. It does feel delicate, and I am worried about dropping it. I'll start reviewing cases this week, but I'm afraid to add the bulk because I love that lightweight feel and the size it is right now. It looks a lot more like an iPad. The new buttons work well, although the home button seems a bit high up on the side. Despite not having stereo speakers, the new iPhone Plus speaker sounds, well, pretty good, and it's much louder than its predecessors. Finally, the last feature I'm getting reacquainted with is the notification screen. Until now, I never really found a use for this, but Apple has finally added widgets. Kinda. Now I can get graphical, quick glances at weather, Sports Center, BuzzFeed, and my step counter in the Today tab in notifications. Surprisingly, I wasn't even really excited about this feature until I started using it, and now I find myself checking it all the time. Overall, I'm satisfied with the large 5.5-inch iPhone 6 Plus. This is what I've been wanting, a large screen with iOS, and I'm sure I'd be complaining if they completely renovated the user experience. I'm hoping they update these apps to work like the iPad and rotate for landscape use, and finding a use for this rotation other than just a neat feature. I'd love to see multi-display for multitasking, and basically it's just an iPhone, only larger, and I'm okay with that. Actually, I'm happy with that. I found myself replacing the iPad now that I've got ample room for games and video, and I'm really looking forward to enhancements coming to iOS.